And now on the line is Barry Grant from Extern Problem Gambling. Barry, welcome back to Near FM.
Thanks very much, Darren. Thanks for having me on.
Okay, Barry, today is our first interview on Near FM in just over a year, and we have been covering the need for regulation of the gambling industry on Near FM for over 6 years now. Am I right in saying that, barring a general election in the meantime, we may actually be in the final straight of seeing the Gambling Regulation Bill enacted over the next couple or few months, Barry?
Yeah, certainly that's what the government are saying, that they want to get it completed in the early part of this year. I think we're on the fourth stage of 11, which is the closest it's ever been in the last 11 years since the original bill was published. So I'm hopeful. I really hope we don't find ourselves in a situation where we have a general election before the bill gets elected, because then it would essentially go back to zero, and you'd have to start from scratch again. So I'm hopeful that the government are actually going to get it over the line in the early part of this year.
Okay, I don't know for sure how long you are working in this area of problem gambling and advocacy, Barry, but can you give me a summary? This is a very standard question, but can you give me a summary of why we should have, in your opinion, regulation of the gambling industry in Ireland?
Well, I'm working on the gambling addiction advocacy space since 2016, kind of focusing specifically on this area. There's an urgent need for gambling regulation. I mean, just today, the UK Gambling Commission fined a licensed gambling operator over there, GameSys, £6 million for failings around responsible gambling and anti-money laundering legislation over there. And we've seen the UK Gambling Commission over the years handing out massive fines to household name gambling companies who would be licensed to operate in Ireland as well, for failings around responsible gambling measures and anti-money laundering as well. So we know that gambling companies are in breach of certain responsibilities already in jurisdictions. These would be the same gambling companies who have customers in Ireland, and yet we have no regulator here to monitor the behaviour of the gambling companies or to protect vulnerable people from the behaviour of the gambling companies. So it's really, really important, and it's urgent at this stage, especially since the onset of online gambling and since online gambling has become so popular, that we have a regulator in place who can robustly regulate the gambling industry's behaviour.
Okay, you might have already answered this in part. You mentioned online gambling there, but just to talk in general, have there been any major trend changes in your work over the last few years, Barry, since you started working in this area?
Yeah, definitely. The age of people seeking help was getting younger, so generally it would have been kind of mid-30s and above. So would have been seeking help when I started out as an addiction counsellor 12, 13 years ago, and now it tends to be, early to mid-20s. So we're seeing people getting into trouble with gambling earlier in their lives, and fortunately seeking help to deal with that problem earlier in the day as well. We've seen a massive shift to online gambling, and that would be the same across the population. There's more and more of a move to online gambling. The problem with that is the 24-hour accessibility of online gambling, whereas with a betting shop that's going to close at some point, and even the casinos that are scattered around the country and arcades, they will generally have some sort of a closing time. Whereas on your smartphone, it's 24/7, 365, it's instantly accessible, and that really ramps up the addictiveness of the product.
Okay, I don't know if you heard it, Barry, but last month I interviewed Senator Mark Wall from the Labour Party on the Gambling Regulation Bill, and he told me that he and his party believe that the incoming gambling regulator should be given the resources over the next few months to enable them to be the sole provider of educational and addiction services when it comes to other state-funded organisations like schools and publicly funded addiction services. I understand that the chief executive of the incoming gambling regulator has also spoken on this issue recently as well, stressing its importance. Do you believe, Barry, that what Senator Mark Wall is calling for and what the CEO of the gambling regulator has said on this recently should ideally be the case?
Well, I'd like to see the funding for educational services come through the social fund, which would be administered by the regulator. I mean, our service has probably been the largest provider of educational services around gambling, problem gambling harm prevention over the last few years. And we've delivered those talks and workshops, I think, in 23 of the 26 counties in the Republic at this stage. So, you know, if the regulator were to completely take over that space without any kind of experience or knowledge in that space, I think that could not necessarily be a good thing. But certainly I would want to see the regulator being the sole provider of funding for those types of services. So I imagine that the regulator would commission NGOs, organisations like ourselves and others to deliver on the ground, and you know, maybe the regulator will decide on what those materials will look like, and I wouldn't have any problem with that. But for them to completely take over the delivery of it when they've no experience or expertise in that area as of yet, and take it out of the hands of organisations who do have knowledge and expertise in the area, I don't see how that would benefit anyone. Basically, it's just wait and see with the Gambling Regulation Bill. I really hope that this government gets it over the line before the next general election, because it's so badly needed. I mean, the resources that the social fund would fund in terms of addiction treatment, prevention, education, research, there's a huge gap there at the moment. There's almost essentially no statutory funding for any of those areas, so it can come soon enough.